Right. I'm working on a book about that's based on quantum physics, and quantum physics is all about entrainment and things that are occurring at different parts of the universe at the same time and actually affect each other in different parts of the universe, even though that they're not connected. But I'm trying to bring that down to something that'll help people get a better job and make more money and find love. So I'm always trying to relate the highest concepts to the things that people really want to know. Because when you do a book like Goddess Guide Me, which is all about the different goddesses guiding you, but there's three things people want to know. They want to know about finding love or improving a relationship. They want to find happiness, and they want a better job. So that's basically love, money, and success, I guess. Everything I do and everything that I know about science, I'm always trying to relate it to how people could have a better time of the experience.
But in your simplicity, you're very accurate in defining the order of the universe in which we have to orient, and that's like a metabolic food chain. It's like metabolizing the chemistry of the universe, and that doesn't really alter. It is the chemistry of the universe, and then we can get into alchemy, but then we have to step back into the order of the universe.
In alchemy, one of the first principles is you can't make gold unless you have it, and that's something that throws a lot of people off. But what they're talking about is the alchemy. The alchemists were supposed. It's a metaphor for perfecting yourself, the leaden self, and perfecting the self into a golden self. Then you could actually make gold or have your life become successful. Mm-hmm. So the alchemists were trying to perfect themselves. When it got crazy was when they started talking about creating real gold, which I'm sure one day they'll be able to do, and some people could probably do it through the ages. And because of what I know about astrology, I think that plutonium one day will be able to be broken down into various elements. Like it'll be like the holodeck in Star Trek, where plutonium, the absolute worst, most disgusting, deadly thing, will end up being one of the most valuable, wonderful things, because Pluto is the highest and the lowest. So I think one day they will be able to make gold, but first we have to have the wisdom to not use these forces for destruction, because powerful forces are powerful. Everyone's always talking about Margaret Mead and saying, never forget that a small group of people who are dedicated can do great things, but they can also do bad things. And there are small groups of people who are very dedicated to doing bad things. So if we all perfect ourselves as much as we can and get as smart as we can, I think then you're going to have a chain reaction of good things for the
Well, the
world.
alchemist that nobody talks about is Newton.
Sure.
Okay, he was...
And an astrologer.
Yeah, he was not trying to...
And very religious, too.
Yes, but it was not. It was a different type of approach to religion.
Right. He had a personal relationship with whatever He thought that the universe would tell him his secrets, which it did to a tremendous degree. And I think when Haley wrote to him and said, "How can you believe in astrology?" He said, "Sir, I've studied these things you have not."
But doesn't everybody think the universe is going to tell them secrets?
Yes.
I've always thought that
everybody but not everybody else. So I think we all forget how much fear people live in. Because I remember growing up, I didn't grow up in a religious household, but I grew up in a religious time in a religious neighborhood, and I saw that it's not that religion intends to inflict fear on you. It's just such a part of, did I do the right thing in the sight of God's eyes? And to be feeling like the eyes of Texas are upon you, but it's worse than Texas. It's everything is upon you. And eventually it morphs into more of a friendly, let's do this thing together. But if you live in a fear-based thing, you do all kinds of crazy bad things.
Well, I think people can be manipulated through fear.
Exactly.
And I'm sure people who use power as a base and a very Machiavellian concept for the structure of power, religion as an element of that trine. That's not a healthy experience. I don't think the spiritual people intended that. But
no, but I think the religios, to bind together again. It's to bind you together again with the absolute, with with yourself. I mean, religion is binding together, getting together, just like yoga is union.
Yeah, religious and
very similar.
ritual and prayer.
So I actually have a lot of respect for religious people. I just think when it gets out of hand,
Oh, I agree.
when they start thinking,
Yeah,
what
no,
does
no.
God want me to do? God doesn't need you to do anything.
Oh, that's interesting.
God, if there is the God that you're
That's
talking about,
interesting. That's
He's
interesting.
looking at you and saying, "What are you doing?" It's
that's
It's
interesting,
very
Monty.
Brooklyn, actually. It's
No, that's very interesting.
it's like, so how you doing? That's what God's saying to you. God doesn't need you to go out and kill people or do this or
That's
do
very
that.
interesting.
God is God. So that's why I was puzzled by religion at an early age. And I actually studied the Bible in a New York City public high school as honor English class. We read it as a secular book, and I got a lot out of it.
Oh,
And-
yeah, Bible's
and it
pretty
turned out to
interesting.
be a lot of history. And I also got a lot when I got to reading the Zechariah Sitchin books, which I love tremendously, and knowing a lot about the Bible. It helped. It helped. So it's a wonderful world. I mean, people doing what we're doing here that's magic. That's the future.
My favorite religious text is from the Videographer, and it's the story of the creation, and it's about the Torah, and it's an older version of the story of creation, but the Torah, as the book, sits on the lap in the throne with the Creator, who is God or Yehovah, and there are triplicity at that point, and she is a she. This is not a he. This is not a masculine he.
Yeah.
And she issues the names for all the things in creation. God looks at the Torah, and this is about the written word. It's about the symbol of the word. And those are the letters and the forms. And she issues the letters, and she issues the names for them, and she issues the words for things.
Interesting. So she invents language.
She invents language. And in Egyptian, it's Path who does this. In the Hebrew, it's abstract. She issues the forms of the letters. And in Egyptian, it's formantant. And therein is the big chasm of the philosophical differences.
Well, in language, Hebrew and Sanskrit and some of the earliest languages, the word or the sound was supposed to be the vibrational essence of
Correct.
the item being described.
Correct.
So by saying glass, that was
Correct.
the sound in Sanskrit or Hebrew was that
Glass.
vibration that it was putting off. So
Right.
I guess, because in the beginning it says there was the word.
And-
I guess
and the
it's all
word-
the naming.
Right. In the beginning was the word, and the word became the light. And so in the beginning there was the sound, like the Yavanya and the Vasa. In the beginning was the sound, and the sound became the light. That's the light that brings form to the universe, the gluons and the photons and the waves.
mesotrons.
Yeah. And this is what forms the universe. So in the beginning, in there's she as the feminine divine, and she issues the letters and the words, the alphabet that describes the creation.
Fabulous. I love the early languages.
So
I don't know enough about them, but
that's just a metaphor of a story,
right.
and in my mind, these metaphors carry some significance. There's some reality to the source of the metaphor. You can extrapolate from there to the cows come home, and each
That's a metaphor.
each culture has a very similar foundation for all of the stories. I mean, the stories are almost verbatim the same.
Sure, especially the flood.
Flood's a biggie.
Yeah.
What do you think the flood was? They say there was no big flood.
Oh, I think there was. I
Oh,
think
yeah.
there was one about 15,000 years ago.
Easy. Yeah, about that.
And that, this is based on the work of Zechariah Sitchin. It's not like I've done the work, but from what I've read about it and what I've seen about it and what I've read about core samples and the wearing away on the Sphinx, which they just repaired so you can't see it anymore, but you used to be able to see it. It was water damage. Every geologist would say, well, that's water damage. According to Zechariah Sitchin, every 3,600 years, a planet that has been captured by our solar system comes back and passes between the orbits of Jupiter and Mars.
Yes.
And so 12,000 years ago, apparently, it came through.
Well, that's interesting.
And when it came through in such a way that it passed close enough to Earth where the South Polar ice cap came off, or a good deal of it went into the ocean and made a 100-foot wave go up and down
Oh, that's
the
interesting.
Earth.
That's
You know,
interesting.
and that's the biblical flood story, and that accounts for why there's, you know, weird things like salt, you know, Himalayan salt.
Yes.
Everyone's always talking about Himalayan salt. It's like sea salt, but it's at 12,000 feet.
Correct.
It put this incredible wave that took the oceans up into the mountains, and did a whole lot of stuff. So that's the explanation of why there used to be an atmosphere on Mars, and there's no atmosphere on Mars because it ripped it off. You know, I find his
interesting.
work fascinating. So that's my light reading whenever I feel like things are too mundane, I read his work and I realize what reality really is and where everything really
Oh, that's nice.
came from.
Monte.
Yeah, I really love his stuff.